beyond fear, beyond terror.
If you thought you could never be frightened,
That could change your life forever.
I didn't say anything, but some guy seems to be following me around. But he was big. He was really big. That's all I could see. I was afraid of the kids.
Drive me to the moon.
Do you mind if we stop at my place first?
I'm just someone who's been gifted with ESP, extra sensory perception. This must look like witchcraft to you, but sometimes I get feelings, vibes, as the kids would call them.
Did your extrasensory perception prepare you for this?
Some freak's been on the telephone tonight. Heavy breathing and everything.
Here? Tonight?
Scared me.
Hi, I'm Elaine Beauty from My Bloody Valentine and The Incubus, and you're listening to The Hysteria Continues.
And indeed you are. Welcome back to The Hysteria Continues. I think this is episode 168, and this time we are off to Africa, or South Africa to be exact, or Johannesburg pretending to be somewhere, anywhere, USA, with 1979 or 1980s or 1981, we'll discuss that a little bit later, The Demon. Not to be confused with lots of other films called The Demon. It's not Night of the Demon or all other kind of demon movies, but this is the Cameron Mitchell, Jennifer Holmes, Percival Rubin's kind of a semi-remake sort of psycho wig out on Halloween. It's kind of a bit of a, although it's a copy of a film, it's a bit of a, it's a, how can I put it? It's unique. But we'll be talking about The Demon in a little bit. Before we do that, let's see how the gang's all been getting on. So, Erik, how are you doing?
I want to go home. I don't want the demon to get me. Name that movie.
Demons or Demons 2.
Oh, of course it is.
It's one of those two.
Demons 2. Well done, Nathan Johnson.
Well done. He's won
Oh,
the
yeah,
mini quiz.
it was the gym rat woman.
Yes. She said that in tight lycra. Like saying things in tight lycra.
Yes.
Are you wearing tight lycra now?
I am. Just back from my workout with Jamie Lee Curtis and John Travolta.
Oh, that sounds perfect.
How did that work out?
Hey, you're on the ball tonight, Nathan.
So, well, I'm glad to hear you're fighting fit, Erik. Joseph, how are you doing?
I'm quite well at the moment. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, that's good. I don't know if you can hear the barking dog in the background.
I hear the barking dog.
Yes.
That's Nathan's menagerie, but not obviously.
No, it's our, not our dog, it's our neighbour's dog. So I thought recording in the evening and have slightly more chance of them taking the dog inside, but I think it's one of those dogs that starts going mental if someone opens a car door in Madrid, 400 miles away. But hopefully he'll be quiet soon.
The audio on this episode might turn out to be rough.
Well, at least we're not doing a commentary anyway, because we could have been doing a commentary tonight. We swapped it around for a mystery film, which we may be able to announce by the time this podcast comes out. But anyway, so hopefully you enjoy the sounds of dogs barking. Nathan, how are you doing?
I'm doing wondrous.
Fantastic. Well, I'm very glad to hear it. I'm doing good, apart from the dogs barking, but what can you do? So yeah, we're going to be covering the Halloween homage, to be kind, The Demon, a little bit later in the show. That's our main feature. But before we do that, let's have a little chat about what we've been watching since we recorded last. So, Erik, how about you?
I've been watching the World Cup. Woo! Go England.
Yeah, so have I. But of course, by the time this comes out, it'll be old news, won't it? And we'll know who's won.
Okay, the only thing I've watched since the last podcast, and proof that I do listen to you, Justin, I watched The Endless, which you were talking about in the last episode, which is the new kind of low-budget sci-fi thing that's getting quite good reviews out there. I I really enjoyed it. Yeah, you were saying last week that it lent more towards sci-fi than horror, and I'd agree. But I think probably the best description for it is that it's very Twilight Zone-ish, because it's, it's not sci-fi in the sense that there's aliens and spaceships and lasers and all that type of stuff. I thought it was really intriguing. I loved the sort of explanation of what's going on. Well, the explanation to a degree about 2/3 of the way through, and it becomes really intriguing. I thought it had elements of kind of annihilation in its plot, and its vibe was somewhere along the lines of Cube. I thought, in the sense that it's low budget, it has that Twilight Zone feel, but it really gets around its budget issues very well. You wouldn't know that it. Well, you probably would, but I've seen complaints online saying that the two leads are quite weak, which are also the writers and directors of the film, Justin Henson and Aaron Moorhead. Actually, Justin Henson sounds like your name, Justin, if you got married to. But no, I really, really enjoyed it, and I find it hard for modern films to work their magic on me these days, but I did really enjoy The Endless. I would give it. It's out in cinemas in a limited release here at the moment, and it's also simultaneously released on Blu-ray.
Okay, excellent. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I think you were going to check it out, Sir Joseph, weren't you? Did you get a chance?
Yes, I saw The Endless. I thought it was pretty effective. It basically takes this really bizarre story and it plays it so matter-of-factly. It's like. What I mean about that is, like, you have these two friends who they talk about this cult that they once belonged, and they talk about it very casually, as if it were just like kind of like a minor or a moderate infraction upon their day. So it's no surprise to see them just kind of nonchalantly follow them back to this so-called cult that they left many years ago. They're going back to check it out present day, I guess, to kind of do away with their inner demons or whatever. But I don't know. It's just it gets a lot weirder. I wouldn't call it a sci-fi movie at all, except for maybe the last 15 minutes. It's kind of a weird. It almost felt like a melodrama to me, but it's got all those kind of. Like Erik said, like those Arrival-esque elements to it, I guess. I don't think it's a very entertaining film. I think the subject matter, with all the plot twists that, elevate, its absurdity each time they're presented. I think it could use some sort of shot in the arm in the entertainment department. It's a really slow film. I guess that kind of works to a certain degree, but it doesn't really kind of invite that rewatchability thing. It's an effective film, but it's forgettable at the same time, I guess. So I liked it, but I have no desire to ever see it again.
I do have a desire to see it again, mainly because by the time the film ended, I was full of questions like, well, why didn't they do X, 20 years ago, or why didn't they do Y? And I thought, well, maybe they mentioned that earlier in the script, because there is a point in the film where you're sort of served a sort of a dense amount of information quite rapidly. So yeah, it's one I would like to go back and watch.
I think to answer that, like, X wasn't very popular back then, and I've never heard of a drug called Y, so.
I probably would have no desire to watch it. I think you guys have warned me away from it.
No, but do you like Twilight Zone type stuff?
Yeah, but that's like 30 minutes. It's not 2 hours of a movie that Joseph says is boring.
It's 90 minutes. And
it's not boring. It's not boring at all. I
didn't find it boring at all. I didn't find it slow either, to be honest.
Yeah, Nathan, we just sat through Death Nurse 1 and 2.
What?
So we've just sat through Death Nurse 1 and 2.
That's at least 2 separate movies.
It was 2 hours put together.
Yeah, well, I mean, if like you were to present me with a movie that was 2 separate movies that was, an hour each, then I'd be more inclined to do it. But I find it very hard to stick with a movie that's over 90 minutes long.
Well, it is only 90 minutes long, but there is no scenes of the cult members chasing each other around a table, so you probably won't like it.
Well, I mean, the IMDb said it was an hour and 51 minutes, so I guess that's
sorry,
why.
You're correct. It is an hour and 51. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's just too long.
Yeah, I guess what I meant. I guess what I meant is, like, it's an hour and 50 minutes long, which is kind of, an extended running time. So by that nature, it's slow. But I was not really bored. I was kind of intrigued. But at the same time, there were no, like, big kind of chase scenes or any kind of, like, wow moments to kind of just, like, make you want to go back and rewatch it. For me, at least, that makes any sense.
Fair enough. Okay, well, thank you, Erik. Anything else?
No, that was all I had time for this week. Yeah.
Okay, what about you, Joseph?
The only other thing I've seen is maybe a film we've all seen by now. It's Triggered.
Yes,
I've seen that now as well.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I thought the first 15 minutes of this film, I was like kind of into it. That's not a spoiler to say that I didn't like the film, but I think I was into it the first 15 minutes more so than I was the remaining portion of the film. I think the joke in Triggered, I think it kind of wears thin really quickly. And it's not necessarily a knock against the writing, as some of the writing does hit pretty close to the chest with how these Tumblr types act today. It's more along the lines of, hey, this movie is just a hair shy of being 2 hours long, and I think no slasher film has any right being that long, no matter how clever the writing may be. I think it really needed a proper editor to kind of, just excise some of these extraneous scenes that go on way too long. And I don't know. I think that might have helped it generate, a little bit more urgency, because I think if this film is lacking anything, it's just urgency. I mean, I think the writing is very clever, and I like some of the death scenes. I think the actors, you like and dislike them, proportionately, to their screen time in the film. So that's good. It's just there's no like rah to this, which is a slasher film, and I think there should have been. So I feel like it would have been a better, like, Funny or Die skit than it would be a movie. So a recommendation. It's quirky enough, but it's not something. If I'm honest, it's not something I could go back and watch again.
Okay. What about you, Nathan? Have you seen it yet?
Yes, I watched it. I really liked the film. I almost felt like the slasher part of it kind of took a back seat to I don't know, the high school shenanigans, I guess I should call it. I mean, I don't know how to explain it, but I almost felt like the slasher part of it was kind of secondary in the story. But I mean, that's not a knock against it. I mean, I just felt like the Heathers, you guys know the 80s movie The Heathers, that kind of style of stuff seemed more, that kind of dark humor seemed more apparent than the horror slasher part. But that's totally fine. I mean, I thought that it was, I many times during the movie I thought it was fun. I hated the main character, but I don't think you're meant to like this person, because they kind of just embody the taking PC to an insane level. They're offended. She's offended by every single thing that happens. You can't cough in her direction without her being offended by the way you coughed. But ultimately, no, I liked it, but I do kind of understand what.
Just the way you said that was just like you're just so pissed off about it.
Well, I mean, I think you're not supposed to care for her, which is good, because I didn't. I mean, no mark against the actress or anything. I'm strictly speaking character only. But frankly, I do kind of agree with Joseph. I mean, it's nearly 2 hours. That's too long for me. I think a nice 90-minute film, I think it would have been even better. But it's not a bad movie whatsoever. I've seen way worse independent horror films, enough to last me a lifetime. And I'm talking about newer films, not the classic 80s stuff like Death Nurse, before you guys try to say anything about that.
As if we would.
But ultimately, yeah, I definitely recommend people seeing it. Like I said, my only mark against it is the running time. That's really the only negative thing I really got. And movies that are that long, it kind of prevents me from rewatching, just because, I don't know. It's funny because it's only an extra 30 minutes. If you think about a 90-minute to a 2 hour long movie, it's only a 30-minute difference. But for some reason, that 30 minutes feels a lot longer. I don't know why. Maybe it's just I'm just so used to my movies being around 90 minutes long. I mean,
well, the extra 30 minutes is typically stuff the director refuses to cut for whatever reason, and he or she probably should have. That's what I find in a lot of these films.
Well, and the thing is, it's not just independent films I feel this way about. You guys know that there's a lot of like those superhero or action movies, and Wes likes some of those, and I'll watch them with him, and I'm just like, I don't need to see Batman for like 2 hours and 30 minutes. I mean, that's way too long. I'm sorry, just give me Adam West Batman that's like a 30-minute episode, and I'm good. But anyway, yeah. So Triggered, huh?
I said I'm totally with you on that one.
Yeah. So Triggered, yeah, definitely recommended. Just be prepared that it's a little longer than you probably would expect for this kind of film. That's all.
Okay, well, thank you, Nathan. What about you, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose I agree with what the two boys have said. I appreciated what they're going for. I found parts of it entertaining, but overall, I found the film was too lengthy. It dragged, I think. I thought it was an interesting twist to have this main character embodying everything I hate about social media, which is these SJWs, as Joseph introduced me to that acronym. These social justice warriors who, would be just going around looking for stuff to be offended by so that they can, go out with their placards and stuff. So I thought it was interesting to have her as the main character. I know she's obnoxious in that, but I found her very interesting to watch. The problem for me is, like, I was with it for the first half, but there's a sort of pivotal scene halfway through set in detention where a certain event happens, and then the film after that tended to drag for me. I think I liked the sort of high school hijinks stuff for the first half more than I liked where it becomes a bit more slashery in the second half. It was great to see Amanda Wyss back in there. She was playing the high school principal. She, of course, was Tina in the original Nightmare on Elm Street. And in general, I mean, the acting is pretty decent from these low-budget horror films. But yeah, as Nathan said, I wouldn't go back to it. Like, the running time would put me off ever going back for a rewatch. If it was a nice little 64-minute movie like Death Nurse 1 or 2, although I have no chance of ever going to see them again either, then maybe I would. But no, I would give it a thumbs up. Now, if this was from 1981 and had people in sort of, gaudy 80s clothes, then maybe I would still watch it at 2 hours. But because it's 2018, I'm less inclined. But yeah, a thumbs up for, these people have made a movie. I've never made a movie, so
Okay, well, fair enough. I would agree largely, in so much I think it is too long. I think it would be good if the director Chris Moore, who is a lovely chap, could make a 90-minute film and say, or 89 minutes, and just say it's not going to go over that right for that, rather than have something that's kind of a 2-hour movie. And I don't think it does it any favours, because it's, like Joseph said, it's very wittily written, and kudos to him for exploring kind of controversial subject matter within a kind of the slasher movie. I mean, certainly did with Blessed Are Children, his like previous kind of slasher movie, which kind of dealt with abortion. So it's kind of dealing with those kind of subjects. But also the good thing about it is that certainly with this film, it's got a sense of fun to it, which definitely reminiscent of like the more fun orientated slash movies of the 80s. And it's kudos to the actors, and especially the main actress, who is fantastic in the role, because you really don't like her, even though it's kind of strange because she is so annoying. But there are moments throughout the film, certainly the first half, where there's a vulnerability there, and you can see that there's something else going on with her. It's not just this kind of knee-jerk thing. But then that all gets turned on its head. You'd have to see the movie to find out what we're talking about. But I liked it. I thought, I'm really interested in seeing what Chris does next. But I would like him to, be very strict with himself and just kind of do a 90-minute slasher movie, because slasher movies need to be zipping along at a fast pace. They just don't they don't really work when you have long stretches of non-thriller elements happening. And so you have there is that kind of slightly awkward mix of slasher and kind of comedy and sort of
naked men's bottoms.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that, Erik, as we all know, but I liked it. And I'm, thank you, Chris, for sharing the film with us. And I hope you do really well with it, because I think it's an interesting subject matter. It's wittily written, got great performances. It just could do with being trimmed down a bit. And I know it's very difficult to do that, I'm sure, when you're very close to the subject material. But I think you'd have a better movie with it. And I think Triggered would benefit from, being a bit trimmer, put it that way. So, okay, well, Joseph, anything else?
No, that's it for this week.
Okay, what about you, Nathan?
Well, while Erik and Joseph were getting locked into endless sci-fi, I decided to check out your other recommendation called Trash Fire. And it was just as awesome as I expected it to be based on your review. It's so completely insane. You got this guy and girl who are a couple, but they seem like they hate each other. There's actually one point where she says, "I'm pregnant." And then he kind of looks at her and she's like, "Well, don't worry, I'm going to have an abortion." And he's like, "Well, of course you are. How much is it? We'll split it." It's very mean and cruel. But they end up going to see his grandmother and his sister, who was burned in a fire years before. And his grandmother is over the top insane. She's absolutely hilarious. But if she was a real person, I couldn't stand to be around her for more than a few minutes. She has no problem, within minutes of meeting her grandson's girlfriend, calling her a slut and stuff like that. And there's even one point when she finds out she's pregnant, and she says to, "Are you sure it's, his baby?" And the girlfriend, of course, understandably being insulted, is like, "I haven't been with anybody else. It's his. So now you know that I'm not a slut. And what, maybe you like me now?" And the grandmother's like, "No." She's like, "You're still a slut, but at least you're not a liar. Oh, and I don't like you." And just walks off. So it's full of all these weird family moments. And I have to admit, it's very unpredictable. And I'm not going to spoil it at all because you'd have to see it. But I had absolutely no idea how this movie was going to end, because the grandmother's insane. And yes, there is a scene that Justin mentioned where she watches a preacher preaching on one of those televangelist type shows, and she masturbates to it. And it's very odd and weird. And the movie's just full of odd and weird moments like that. But if you like the bizarre movies that are unpredictable and completely insane, then I recommend Trash Fire.
Is this another Greasy Strangler type film?
No, I think it's way better than Greasy Strangler.
Okay.
This movie actually, I don't know, it actually feels like a movie. Whereas to me, Greasy Strangler seemed like a bunch of small storylines slapped together in grossness, if that's a word. If it's not, then I'm making it up.
I think you're right. The Greasy Strangler is much more over the top out there, isn't it? This is it's kind of more grounded in reality to some degree, although it's still, there's a lot of weirdness going on in it, but it's not as self-consciously weird as Greasy Strangler. It's more kind of it's full of a lot of characters you'd really hate in real life and a lot of time in films, but it kind of works in this kind of context because you meet characters at the beginning that you think are despicable and really unpleasant, but then you realise they're the nicest people in the film.
And that's pretty crazy.
Yeah. So excellent. Well, thank you, Nathan. One film I just watched actually earlier.
I'm not finished.
Oh, sorry. Oh. Sorry, not sorry.
I have one more.
It's the time. It's Rhubarb O'Clock.
Yeah.
Hold on. I watched Creep 2.
Crazy rhubarb lady, all up in that alley property. You don't fucking know somebody, your business.
Is that Erik continue. Or Justin?
Justin.
Oh, okay. So
Erik.
Justin has that sound. No, I watched Creep 2. Did you guys see the first Creep?
Yeah.
That's the... Yeah. Not the one.
Yeah, the found footage movie. Well, Creep 2's on Netflix now over here in the States. So I decided to give it a watch, and I really liked it. I would have preferred the first. And the second one is about a woman who goes to film him. And right away he tells her, I'm a serial killer, and I want you to document, my day, this 24-hour day in the life of him as a serial killer. But I mean, she doesn't believe him. She thinks he's a nut, but miraculously decides to stay around and film him anyway. I guess because getting that good footage means more to her than the potential danger of following this crazy guy around. But I mean, yet again, just like in part one, I found him to be very likable, aside from the fact that he kills people. He's a very weird, quirky, and likable guy. It's got full frontal male nudity, which I did not expect. That was one of the more whoa kind of moments in it. So there you go, Justin. There's something for you.
Or
I've seen it. So I've seen it.
You've seen it. Okay.
Yeah.
And I mean, I like the woman in it well enough, but I just felt like there were so many like warning signs, and she sticks around, and she's kind of odd herself. So maybe it's not too crazy to think that she would have stuck around, because she seems a bit kind of out there as well. Maybe not as much as him, but I mean, ultimately, if you like the first one, I think you would like this one too. So, I mean, I would recommend checking it out. It's pretty short. It's under 80 minutes long. So, the pace is, pretty good. And, it's about as well paced as part one, I'd say. So it depends on how you feel about part one, if I would recommend part two or not.
Well, I've seen it. I saw it a couple of months ago, I think, when it premiered on Netflix. I didn't like it as much as the first one. I didn't think it was as good. I think it kind of the joke or the premise of the first one was so novel or kind of well done that I think this the second time around it kind of lost a certain something, and it didn't quite gel as well for me. But I enjoyed it well enough. But if you've not seen the first Creep, then I would heartily recommend that, definitely.
Yeah, I really liked the first film a lot. I started to watch the second film. I got about 10 minutes into it, and I couldn't really get into it, and I just haven't went back to try again, but I probably will eventually.
That's probably worth checking out. I thought that towards the end, you find out the real reason that he wanted her to film, and I thought that was a little different, because I just think it's interesting, the idea of this serial killer who's kind of become jaded with killing. So there's that.
Cool. What about you, Eric? Have you seen either of those movies?
I saw the first one. My memory is that I thought it was okay, but nothing more. So my desire to see Creep 2 isn't terribly high, but as it's only 80 minutes, perhaps I will at some stage. And it's got full frontal male nudity, although I'm guessing it's not a big fat 45-year-old man.
Is that what you'd prefer?
I love your description, by the way. It's a fat 45-year-old man.
Or even 55. I'm guessing it's like a 20-year-old gym bunny.
It's not actually, is it? No.
Eric's got father issues.
No, I think it's a dad bod kind of guy.
Okay. I'll download it, so.
Oh, Eric. As long as you can't hear the fapping going on.
On Netflix. Oh, sorry, that bit, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Nathan, at risk of being raising your wrath again, anything else?
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry for flying off the handle like that.
That's okay.
No, that's all that I've seen this time around.
Okay, right. Well, thank you. Just one thing we watched earlier today. It was a film. I saw the trailer for this at the cinema maybe 6 months ago. I don't think it did get cinema release. Well, I certainly didn't see it, but it's going to seem to be out streaming now. Is a film called The Wildling, which stars Liv Tyler, who was in The Strangers and many other things as well. But she plays a deputy or a sheriff in a small country town, remote country town. It also stars Brad Dourif, who's fantastic in it, and he's basically raising this little girl, and he keeps her trapped in a room, and he tells her she can't go out because she'll get eaten by this kind of werewolf type creature. And the story kind of it kind of goes where you probably expect it to go, really. But it's, if you can imagine, for want of a better term, a kind of cross between an art house indie movie and Teen Wolf or Twilight movies. It's kind of that it's nothing special. It looks great, and it's got really good performances in it. But it is pretty ho hum. I thought all round. Really, it didn't really go anywhere particularly interesting or different. But might be worth a watch if you're feeling you haven't got anything else to watch. So you can quote me on that on the Blu-ray cover if you want. But
recommendation.
Yes. And anyone else seen it or heard of it?
No.
Nope.
No. Well, fair enough. Well, on that cliffhanger, shall we jump straight into our feature presentation of the week, which is Percival Rubin's The Demon. Shattering screams pierce the stillness of a country night as the residents of a small community become prey of a possessed demon-like maniac. Something inhuman terrorizes the countryside, waiting to strike at its next chosen victim. Well, The Demon is... I wanted to go back and pick a movie from like what obviously termed the kind of golden age of the slash movie, 78 to 84. And I reviewed this probably well over 10 years ago, and I didn't really remember a huge amount about it, apart from, of course, Boobs Disco, which we'll come onto, as it were, a little bit later. But it was a film that kind of... I have a fascination with films that rip off John Carpenter's Halloween, which, of course, most of the early 80s slasher movies did. But also, when I wrote my book, it was interesting that not many films were made immediately as a cash-in to Halloween. It wasn't really until Friday the 13th kind of became a big box office bonanza that the real kind of rip-offs and inspiration, the mixture between Friday the 13th and Halloween kind of gelled for the kind of the big early 80s slasher movie boom. So there were some films like Silent Scream, When a Stranger Calls, but some of those films were kind of in production at the same time as Halloween, so it's coincidental. But The Demon was definitely inspired by the success of Halloween. In fact, the director said that he saw Halloween when he was bereft of inspiration, and it was a direct inspiration to make this movie. And you can see all the way through it, there's lifts from Halloween, from the scenes where Jennifer Holmes, as a preschool teacher, looks out the window and sees the kind of Michael Myers-esque killer standing there, staring back at her through the window, through the mist and the trees. But having said that, it goes off in some weird, really strange directions. And it's not a great movie, hand on heart. I don't think it's a particularly good movie. It's got some passages that are drawn out and stretched. It's got like a bizarre kind of romantic interlude in the middle, which kind of seems to go on forever, which is quite sweet, but it seems to not really have much of a place in a movie like this. But there are certain scenes and certain things in here which is kind of completely bonkers. Cameron Mitchell is kind of a standout as this bizarre character, as kind of almost like a kind of weird left turn on Dr. Loomis kind of character, where he is an ex-Navy sort of captain, or kind of he's from the Navy. He's a private detective, but he's also a psychic. And he gets drawn into, or asked by this family, this couple whose daughter has been abducted by the demon, to see if they can, he can track her down or find out where the demon himself is. And it leads to this bizarre, he just goes into this kind of semi-trance state where he starts hyperventilating, goes beetroot red, and then rips open this 14-year-old girl's pillow and starts sniffing it, huffing it up. It's very bizarre. All the way through the movie, there's these kind of strange touches which make it quite, considering it's a slavish imitation of Halloween, there are what the fuck moments peppered throughout this, which I think it kind of lifts it out of the ordinary. And it's why I kind of enjoyed watching it again. But I've got a lot more to say on it, but I'm fully prepared to hear that people didn't like it. But I'll be interested to hear what you guys thought of The Demon. So I will start with Joseph. What did you think of The Demon? Was it your first time?
No, it was not my first time. I saw it a long time ago, but honestly didn't remember much about it going into it. I think The Demon is much too dark, and I don't mean that metaphorically. It's the print I watched was pretty much perfectly made for a film where the face of the killer is consistently supposed to be obscured. I think the murderer looked out that this movie didn't have a proper gaffer on set. It's an insanely weird film too, with each quote unquote moment, like what the fuck moment, each one tops the last. I mean, it actually opens rather effectively with that. It's a pretty good jolt of the woman getting the bag over her head, and then her daughter's abducted. But then it moves into something goofy, like the scene with the killer suffocating one of his victims while the guy's driving the car. I mean, dude, couldn't you get him to stop and take a piss or something? I mean, he's driving a car. I mean, then you also, like Justin said, you also have Cameron Mitchell on board, who acts just like this, which is a William Shatner method of acting with all the spacing. I mean, his character's only here so the film can provide us with that, frankly, that exceptional shock about an hour into the film. I mean, otherwise, yeah, he searches for the killer, but he doesn't seem to be tied into the killer or the romantic dunderheads who that the killer actually targets for most of the film. I mean, he's just kind of off in his own little story. I mean, they don't intersect whatsoever. And, oh, God, maybe I missed something, but that skeleton in the tree, was that supposed to be the missing daughter?
I think so, yeah.
Because she's been missing for like a short period of time, and yet this body is a skeleton. I mean, it's picked clean. I mean, how do you do that, over a short period of time, like a couple of weeks or something? And I love how it still even has the blonde hair. Like, seriously? Why does this skeleton have blonde hair? It's a skeleton.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the film just basically just continues on like this, and all you can really do is just sit there in disbelief at just how goofy it all is. I mean, it even ends with a pretty good, chase and suspense sequence with through the house towards the end. But then they have to just make it even weirder by having the girl be topless, the girl who's being chased. It's just so bizarre. I mean, despite it being, kind of poorly lit in a lot of scenes, I actually had a lot of fun with The Demon. I think it's got just that right balance of kind of effective Halloween-esque shocks and suspense, and the absurd kind of flourishes here and there. And when I say just the right balance, I mean the scales are obviously tipped nearly one way, because this thing's not a very effective Halloween clone, if I'm honest. So I mean, if you can't even that out, or just do the suspense as good as Halloween, just go for broke and make the viewer laugh, I guess. So and I did laugh. So a thumbs up for me.
Excellent. Okay. Well, thank you. Erik, how about you?
Okay, well, I tend to agree with what's been said so far. I mean, I find the film to be kind of a mixed bag. I think its barmy moments are really, really entertaining. But the darkness of the print that we're trying to watch, just drags it down slightly. It's got that murky look, the way that Humongous used to be, and Anthropophagus, and Dawn of Drip Blood, The Mutilator, those films. So it really needs to be, I'd love to see Arrow or Scream Factory or somebody get hold of it and clean it up, so we could actually see some of the scenes. I mean, there's one major set piece just after they go to Boob's Disco, where he kills one of the girls, but you can't see what's happening at all in it. It's sort of a blur of sort of shadows and stuff. But I mean, as I said, the barmy moments are brilliant. The bit that gets it bogged down, I think, at times, is when we're introduced to the sort of the three teachers, the three female characters in one of the biggest nods to Halloween. All their love life stuff and their chit chat, I think, drags the film down. It's when it cuts back to Cameron Mitchell and the parents who are looking for the missing daughter that I think the film sort of picks up. And as you said, I love that psychic seizure that Cameron Mitchell has in that girl's room, where he starts sniffing her pillow just as his parents or her parents walk in. But hey, they hired them; it's their own fault. The cat and mouse stuff at the end, I agree, it's really well handled. Again, why she has to be topless, I don't know. She's not topless for very long, because she clothes herself in a shower curtain for some bizarre reason, and a shower cap, in one of the most bizarre endings to a slasher film I've ever seen. And the thing about it is that it feels almost like two different films that have been stitched together, almost like an anthology, because the Cameron Mitchell storyline doesn't have anything to do with the rest of the film. Those characters never meet or interact or anything. So it feels like they might have filmed the Cameron Mitchell stuff and then realized they didn't have enough footage, so they went back and shot this sort of secondary story involving the three girls or something like that. Either way, the shock moment an hour into the film was a real shock, because I'd seen this before, like yourself and Joseph, but I hadn't seen it in quite a long time, so I'd forgotten practically everything about the film. So I really didn't see that sort of shock moment coming an hour into the film. The other thing I wanted to ask you guys about is that the killer, he's wearing a mask in some scenes, but in other scenes it looks like he has white face paint on, particularly when you look at the final couple of minutes of the film. There's a scene where it's very obviously white makeup, white foundation or something is wearing. It cuts back to our final girl, then cuts to the killer, and he's wearing what's obviously a plastic white featureless mask, like the one that Tom Cruise wears in Vanilla Sky. I thought I couldn't understand that. Was it deliberate, or was it just pickup shots that were done maybe months later, where the continuity had gone out the window? Did anyone else notice that even?
Yeah, well, definitely noticed it.
I just thought it was kind of deliberate. Like he was just, sometimes he'd have a mask and sometimes he wouldn't.
Okay, so there's definitely kind of this supernatural thing going, like apart from Cameron Mitchell's ESP, there's obviously something supernatural about this killer then.
Well, I thought because she sees the mask appear and disappear when she's killed the killer, doesn't she, at the end, and she starts screaming. That's what I took from it. When she looks at the killer's in the bath and she's killed him or thinks she's killed him, and she looks down, he doesn't have a mask, and then then he does have a mask and he doesn't, and she starts screaming. So I kind of took it from that
she's confused, just as I'm confused.
Yeah.
But
Cameron Mitchell does draw like those pictures without the face on it as well.
Yeah, he's such a great. He's the worst psychic detective I think I've ever seen in a film. He's absolutely no use whatsoever. Like even his visions of the killer he has no face, so it's just basically a silhouette. Oh, thanks, Cameron. Let's just go find somebody who matches your drawing.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's sort of the good stuff about the film. I love that it's that silly. I think the odd moments are really, really good. Slasher moments are really, really good. It's maybe the romantic subplots and the girls going out with their boyfriends that's a bit dull. But I mean, they do say that if you can end a film on a high, then audiences can forgive anything they've seen in the previous sort of 80 minutes of the film. And that I do find that with The Demon. It's just that the final 10 minutes are so blisteringly good that when I finished watching the film, I thought, wow, that was actually really good. As I said, I'd love to see Arrow or Scream Factory get their hands on it, because the thing that lets it down a lot is that it's so dark, Ghost Dance style dark. So but a big thumbs up for me. I really enjoyed it.
Excellent. Okay, well, thank you. Nathan, what about you?
I liked The Demon, and I liked it when I first saw it, but it also been a really long time, and the only thing I remembered is that I liked the ending. So I rewatched it again and really liked the ending a second time. I'm also not quite sure why she decided to wear a shower curtain and a shower cap to defeat the killer. I don't know why that was on her mind at the end, because it doesn't really serve a purpose.
It might be a magic shower curtain, like in Harry Potter or something.
Oh, and it like made her invisible?
Yeah, or magical powers or something.
Yeah. But the Cameron Mitchell stuff is hilarious. His character is absolutely ridiculous. I didn't really feel that much sympathy for him with what ends up happening to him. But I don't know. It's this movie. I really like it, and I love how ridiculous it can be and silly and insane. But it's almost like Eric was saying, it feels like two separate movies. It reminds me of something like, I don't know if you guys have seen Spookies, but it's the late 80s movie Spookies that came out, and it felt like two separate movies. And later I found out that it actually was two separate film movies, because one storyline just didn't have enough running time, so they decided to add a second one. And that's really what it feels like with this movie, because it's almost like two stories at the same time, and the only connection is the killer. Maybe like Centerfold Girls. You know how like the only connection in that movie is the killer in each story?
Yeah.
It can be sort of like that, the killer's the only connection. But ultimately, that didn't bother me too much. It's just something I noticed while watching it. One thing that did bother me, and I don't know if anybody's mentioned this yet, but the movie's very dark. Dark, to me, I don't think it was quite as bad as something like Silent Night, Bloody Night. because there are scenes in that movie I can't see. I mean, you can't see anything. In this one, I could kind of tell what was going on. I just thought it should have been better lit. So, there's that. But ultimately, I liked it. I liked the final girl. I mean, I wouldn't put it like on par with, something like Halloween, but I would say that it's a fun movie. And if you haven't seen it, it's definitely worth seeking out. So
cool.
There you go.
Excellent. I
Sorry.
come on.
I was going to say, can anyone tell me the connection between The Demon and Friday the 13th Part 5?
There's a character named
Demon.
Oh yeah, there's that. But another connection.
No.
Okay, at Boobs Disco, they're playing the song Funky Town by Lip Sync, and that song was later covered by Pseudo Echo in 1987. And of course, they did a couple of songs for Friday the 13th Part 5, including There's a Man with No Life in His Eyes.
I like Funky Town. It's on my playlist.
That classic track. God knows how they managed to afford the rights to what was a top 10 hit over here anyway.
I did wonder that, and I wondered. I presume because it's on the DVD, so they must have, or just thought no one will find out. I don't know.
Maybe, yeah.
Do you guys know the connection between this movie and Rabid Grannies? This movie was directed by a man named Percival Rubens, and Rabid Grannies features a character named Percival. So there you go.
Wow.
Percival's posh English name, is it not?
Can we talk about the shock that's about an hour into this film with Cameron Mitchell?
Yeah, I would say if you've not watched the film yet, then I would suggest stopping now, go and watch the Demon, and come back.
It's really funny because Cameron Mitchell is this guy with ESP, and he's been tasked with finding their abducted daughter. And so basically an hour has passed, and the husband of the couple is dead. The daughter is still missing, and I think by this point they may know she's already dead. I'm not sure. I can't remember.
The kids have found her in the tree at this stage.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so the kids have found her, so she knows her daughter's dead and her husband's dead now. So Cameron Mitchell comes by to offer condolences, and basically she's like, did your ESP prepare you for this? And she shoots him right between the eyes. Right. It's very shocking and very funny, but I wonder if she blamed him, because it's kind of an overreaction to a guy just not doing his job. I mean, did she blame him for...
But doesn't he give some clue as to where the demon might be living, and that's where the husband goes there and gets killed? So she kind of...
So I think she might blame him. Otherwise, I mean, it's a very absurd overreaction to a guy who's basically just not doing his job, or doing his job very poorly. I wasn't sure if she blamed him or if she just felt like shooting him for no reason.
I just got the impression that Percival Rubens used up his 4 hours screen time, or 4 hours acting time for Cameron Mitchell, and had to wrap it up, and thought, well, shoot him dead. But apparently in some prints, we'll come on to some background. In some prints, you see him kind of skulking around in bushes at the end of the movie.
Yes, I read that. Yeah.
Even though he's been shot dead, so very strange. That moment was kind of really, it would have been fun to have seen that in the cinema at the time and heard an audience's reactions, because it's not what you would expect to happen. And then essentially that whole storyline has gone out the window, isn't it? At that point, I did think. I mean, I'd like to. What do we think about the killer? Because he obviously was taking the cue from Halloween, with like Michael Myers just being this kind of rando kind of psycho who's randomly stalking Jamie Lee Curtis without any pretense to being a sibling or anything like that. But he had, I thought when the film, I thought he was quite creepy, even though he looked like, basically his makeup, it looked like Robert Smith had just come out of a sauna. Sort of as part of the movie, he just looked like he was a mime or something, and then he'd just been in the sauna and he'd come out and his makeup had run. But he did things like, he had like, he'd be outside the door and he'd growl like a dog, but like a real low guttural growl, which I thought was quite creepy. And then he had those kind of claws on his. He had these kind of sharp claws on his on gloves, which of course predated Freddy, Nightmare on Elm Street by by a good few years. Although I do think, given that he kept on putting bags over people's heads and suffocating them, if he was doing that with his clawed gloves, that might have not been that effective, perhaps, because he made loads of holes in them. But
why go to all the trouble of making the clawed glove if you're just going to go around with using plastic bags instead?
I think it's probably because the director had seen Black Christmas as well, I imagine.
True, yeah.
Yes. But yeah, he was. I think there must. Well, I don't think, to be honest, there was a great kind of backstory or sort of clever kind of thoughts behind the killer. I think it was just I think it was a bit slapdash. I don't think there was any hidden meaning to the killer and whether or not he was supernatural or not. But do you notice there was moments like when the killer was outside the classroom staring at the teacher? When she looked, he vanished. He just disappeared, didn't he? All of a sudden, just like blinked out of the picture. So I think there probably was a supernatural kind of element to it. And certainly all the write-up, all the kind of really over-the-top and melodramatic, hysterical write-ups of like announcing the movie, and Cameron Mitchell he says things like, doesn't he, he's less than the man, but more than the man, much more, and things like that. And it's all, saying something inhuman terrorized the countryside. And so it's messy. It's very indistinct, but I think there are bits in it where he is actually quite creepy, and the fact that he walks silently and follows not Jamie Lee Curtis, Jennifer Holmes around the house very slowly in that kind of Michael Myers-esque walk, I think is just by default it's still quite effective.
A lot of people point out that the killer's glove may have inspired Freddy Krueger, but I couldn't help but think they look like little guitar picks. I kept waiting him to pick up a banjo and just start strumming.
Yeah. But it is bizarre, isn't it? And it's good because it was shot in South Africa around Johannesburg. But did you notice there were no black people in the movie at all? I didn't see a single black person in the whole movie, even though it was shot in South Africa, which is, I guess that's apartheid.
I thought South Africa was predominantly white.
No.
Am I wrong? That's what I've heard. That's what I've read. But I don't know.
Well, no. I mean, I think it was predominantly white in the apartheid, as in like ghettos of white. But I think it's, with Nelson Mandela and in more recent years, I think I think most of the population is black, and it always has been. It's just that there was a kind of an apartheid there, which kind of seemed to be very prevalent in this movie, because you didn't see a single black person at all, which it just seemed strange.
Yeah, they're going out of their way to make this look like America, and the tip off is obviously the cars with the steering wheel on the right side instead of the left side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of it's an interesting movie, and I think it's it's probably more interesting than a number of other kind of Halloween clones, because I don't think Percival Rubens was a great filmmaker by any stretch, although apparently he thought that he said that this was his favourite movie and this was his signature movie, which is strange. I haven't seen any of his other movies, but shall we get on to some background?
Yes.
Who would like to go first? Nathan, what do you have for us?
The Demon was released direct to video in the USA in 1981 by Thor and Emmy. And that's one of my favorite VHS companies. They put out the clamshell cases a lot.
Thor and Emmy, yep.
Thor and EMI.
No, because if it was Thor and EMI, it would be E.M.I. But it's EMI together, which means it's a word. Emmy.
You can look that up. You can Google that if you like, but
no, I don't need to Google it. My brain is all the Google I need.
Yeah,
you could not be more wrong. You could try.
No, I couldn't be more right. I could not be more right on this ever.
That's my
thank you,
Russ coming out.
Thank you, Nathan. Do you have anything else for us?
It is a movie. A horror movie. That's all I got.
Thank you very much. Joseph, what about you?
Well, the only thing I have is it's a gag in the film that I noticed, and I don't know if a lot of people would get this, but the scene where the guy and the woman are in the photographer guy and his girlfriend are in his apartment, and she's like searching around his apartment. He's like, "What are you doing?" And she's like, "I'm looking for visible means of support." And then she says something about suspenders. That is actually a direct reference to a Three Stooges short called Shivering Sherlocks from 1948. And coincidentally, in that short, the Three Stooges are being chased around by a guy with some rather nasty fingernails.
Ah.
Are you making that up?
No, I'm not making that up. No. That's all I have.
Okay, well, thank you. Erik, how about you?
Well, I think I stumbled across the same article online that you did, Justin, just from what I've heard you say so far. Is it the one written by Mike Justice on the Erie Midnight Detective Agency?
Yes, which is I was going to credit that, but yes.
I'm going to have to credit him as well because that's where I got all the information. He has a really fairly in-depth article on the Demon where he's tracked down some of the cast members and crew members and that, and he reviews the film as well, and it's very well written. So kudos to Mike Justice because he's the supplier of most of this information I'm about to give. I won't give it all because I know you want to speak as well, Justin. It was released. It seems to have been released in the UK in May 1987 on the Apex label. Now, it might have got a pre-cert release, but I couldn't find any dates there. Could you, Justin, on that?
No, I used to have a Dutch copy of it.
Okay.
But I'm not sure about the...
Yeah. It was reissued on DVD in the UK and Ireland in 2004, and it went through on both occasions without any cuts, probably because you can't see any of the action because it's so dark. It's also known as The Midnight Caller, and there's rumours saying that it was possibly released under the title of Midnight Caller in March of 1985 in the States to theatres, and it was touring around for the bulk of 1985, just one or two prints of it just going around the country. But there is, there's no evidence as such. This is all on the word of mouth.
I did see. Sorry to interrupt, but there was on that article there was a kind of a movie advert, newspaper advert with it under that title, Midnight Caller, and saying it starts today in I don't know where it was, but it was it says one of those kind of classic 80s sort of newspaper things. So it does. I think it did get some limited release.
Let's see. Where does it say it's playing? It doesn't say where it's playing. The Oleander Theatre Cinema, wherever that is. Ashley Senden, who plays Emily, the abducted daughter at the start of the film, she went on to have a disco hit in South Africa with her 1984 single, Ha Ha Ha, Here I Come. Jennifer Holmes, the final girl, she's now a funeral and end-of-life celebrant in California. And in real life, she is married to her on-screen boyfriend, played by Mark Tanis. He also left acting. He's now an artist working with clay and pottery. He says in this article that
Whoa. Did you say he's an arsonist?
He's an artist.
It sounded like you said arsonist. I was like, good God.
No. It's not. I'm not accusing him of any kind of arson.
Yes, you are.
I'm not. Anyway, he goes on to say that they filmed their part of the Demon a few days after they got married, and they got married on May the 10th, 1980. So it appears that certainly their part of the film was filmed in the summer of 1980. Now, Cameron Mitchell's part may have been shot in 1979, which might explain why. Some sources say it was a 1979 movie. Zoli Markey, who plays Joe, she says that Percival wanted to be called Ruby, and describes him as being a bizarre old man. All she recalls from the shoot is that she couldn't wait for it to finish. She said, Ruby's sets were so quiet and lame that we had to drug ourselves just to get through the days, hence the total memory loss. She went on to be in his next film as well, which was called Survival Zone, which is a post-apocalyptic movie. It was made in 1983. She then moved out to Hollywood, working as a waitress. She has this funny quote on this article saying, "Have you ever tried making 30 burgers during rush hour on shrooms? Hilarious is an understatement." So Hollywood didn't work out for her, so she moved back to South Africa to be an oyster farmer, but she also works in the local entertainment industry. And I have a few more things, Justin, but I'll let you speak now. But I'll just say that Boobs Disco was in fact a real disco in Johannesburg. It was on 112 Twist Street. It's no longer there, but I mean, I think it's pretty obvious that the budget wouldn't stretch to making a fake nightclub facade. So I think it was obvious that Boobs Disco must have been real. But what a name for a discotheque!
Amazing. Amazing.
I think they just decided to change the name of the road to Chubby Checker.
Twist Street. See, Nathan? Chubby Checker, Twist.
Oh, okay. All right. The Twist, yeah, because he sang that.
He did.
Yeah.
Checker.
Okay.
Bad boys.
Good God.
Right. Well, thank you, Erik. I've got a few bits that weren't in that article, so I'll just go through those first, and you can hoover up any bits I've missed. But one thing I did see was that there were lobby cards done under the title "The Demon" by Gold Key Entertainment. So presumably it got a release somewhere theatrically under that title, or it certainly was intended to, because again it could have been, because when Silent Scream came out, although again it's not a great film. Rebecca Balding's great, and what's her name, Barbara Steele are great in Silent Scream. It kind of rode the wave of anticipation after Halloween and made quite a lot of money. So this film kind of missed its mark, although what American audiences would have thought when they went to see this in 1985, what they would have thought, I don't know. But I don't know, I'm sure some of you clocked the fact that The Amityville Horror was on at one of the cinemas, the cinema hoardings was on, and that was released in America in 1979 and kind of 1980 in other territories, from what I can tell. There was I think we talked about the topless scenes were filmed for overseas audiences. The one in South Africa, the clothes stayed on, and of course there is the what the fuck scene where she kind of breaks through the ceiling to try and escape, which is almost reminiscent of the scene in Anthropophagus and, in some weird way, the Poseidon Adventure. Confusingly, there are two Jennifer Holmes. One is, and both born a year apart, one in 1955 and one in 1956. There's also Jennifer Holmes, who was an adult actress who was in films such as Hardcore, A Poke in the Adult Orifice? No, I can't say that word. I can't get my lips around it. Oh dear.
Just there's no need to drag this podcast down to that level.
I'm sorry. Anyway, Jennifer Holmes went on, not the porno actress. She went on to be, apparently she was most famous for the first season of Newhart. But she went on before she became a funeral celebrationary thing, which I'm not exactly sure what that is. Why you would need someone upbeat to your funeral, I don't know. But anyway, she was in single episodes of Murder, She Wrote, Fall Guy, Love Boat. She's also in a martial arts film, which I thought Joseph may cover at some point on his other podcast, Raw Force. Is that a film you've seen, Joseph?
Yes, Raw Force. Actually, it's one of the Blu-rays that Vinegar Syndrome had sent me multiple copies of. I love it. Great film.
Excellent. Okay, great. Percival Rubens died in 2009, age 79. He also made, and the reason I started the episode with Helen Udy who was obviously in My Bloody Valentine and Incubus, which Incubus is kind of a part bedfellow to this movie in some ways, isn't it? It's kind of similar feel to it, perhaps. But he made a film which I quite fancy seeing called Sweet Murder in 1990 with Russell Todd and Helen Udy. And it's about a young woman who moves in with another young woman to share a flat, but she turns out to be nutsoid, which sounds very like Single White Female, apart from Sweet Murder was made 2 years before Single White Female. So bizarrely, in a kind of strange twist of fate, perhaps Percival Rubens may have inspired a Hollywood hit after he aped one. So, but is there anything we've missed from that excellent article, Erik?
Let's see. Craig Gardner, who plays Dean Turner in the film, he's an American actor who moved to Johannesburg around this time as he'd married a South African woman. And he's quoted as saying, "I think the demon is responsible for me giving up acting and moving into production. I cringe at the thought of anyone I know watching that movie." He also says that the film is overacted and underproduced, which is two of the reasons why I like the film, to be honest. Vera Blacker, who plays the doctor's wife that's trying to sleep towards the end of the film, she's a Welsh actress who went on to appear in Tobe Hooper's The Mangler in 1995. And this was one of a package of films that were controlled by a guy called Howard Goldfrapp. Did you mention this already?
No, not yet.
Okay, so he sold this to video and TV distribution. He sold the TV and video distribution rights in a package with 3 other films, all classics: Dawn of the Mummy, Evil Speak, and, well, maybe this one's not a classic, The Unseen. So that still would make a nice quadruple bill, I think. That's all I have, I think.
Okay,
yes.
Excellent.
Apart from the fact there's posters in Emily's bedroom. I spotted ABBA, I spotted David Soul. There's somebody, Patrick Duffy she has as well. She likes her heartthrobs.
Hot throbs?
Heartthrobs.
Okay.
Heart.
Okay, good. So, right. Well, let's find out what you, dear listener, think about The Demon. So, Joseph, do you have to hand the feedback?
Yes. Tom Burkhead says, one of those not exactly good, but too danged strange and randomly effective to ignore entries. I'd love to see a decent quality print someday. Bob Freeman says, I wish someone would put this out on Blu-ray. Kieran Edwards says, the Thorn EMI, electrical and musical instruments,
Emmy.
VHS tape left a huge impression on me. Didn't watch it until much later and was a little underwhelmed. Oddly enough, it gets better for me with each viewing because of its flaws and because it feels like you're getting 2 movies for the price of one. Hard to beat the last reel and what I'm guessing Joe Bob Briggs would call, quote-unquote, Cameron Mitchell foo. Here's hoping someone can release a not-so-dark Blu-ray in the future. Chris Moore says, it's nights like this where I wish I could go to Boobs Disco. And I think Chris Moore is the Triggered guy, isn't it?
He is, indeed, yes.
Yeah, that's Chris. Okay. Rob Roach says, I tried watching this, but it was so dark and washed out, I couldn't tell what was happening. Lee Russell, and this is not the Vice Principal's Walton Goggins Lee Russell, Nathan, but it is Lee Russell, says, uninspired but still interesting Halloween ripoff. Cameron Mitchell is the worst psychic detective ever. No, grieving mother, he didn't see getting his brains blown out coming. Or if he did, it was far too late to do anything about it. If only the damn negative was available so there could be a good release of this. Joshua Grattan says, the gunshot came out of nowhere, and the final lady stripping into a shower curtain was something from another world. I've always liked The Demon, but South African slashers like this tend to get bad raps. City of Blood, The Shadowed Mind, Nog Van Vries, and Return of the Family Man. I liked them all. Jeffrey Lee says, the part where the final girl tries to escape the house by breaking a hole through the roof and climb out is one of the biggest what the fuck moments I've seen in cinema history, LOL. Mitch King says, I actually saw this at the theater, but it was somewhere around 85 or 86, I think.
Oh,
my family...
I was just going to say, there we go. Proof that it was released theatrically around 85 under the title Nightcaller.
Yeah. He says, my family liked horror films, so we all went and saw this, and we're all extremely let down. I haven't seen it in years, so I don't know if my opinion has changed, but I remember it being really dark and almost unwatchable. Finally, Brennan Klein says, The Demon is incredibly boring and underlit, but there are 2 things I love about it. I think the sister's relationship with that rich dude is very charming and human, and I think the stunt the final girl pulls in the bathroom is one for the ages. And that's all I have.
Well, fantastic. Well, thank you for everyone for writing in, and this is how to get in contact with the show, and we'll be back just after this.
No, whoa.
Yeah.
Before you do that,
yeah,
I sent feedback, and now you 3 have to fight to the death over who reads it. Remember,
Justin?
But it can't be me because I have everything else is turned off Wi-Fi wise so I don't get too much buffering. So I have to be one of you 2.
I'll find it.
I nominate Erik.
Okay, I need to find it first. Is it in the most recent message thread?
And I love it because Erik said he would never read this out.
Oh yeah, I forgot that there's a hashtag at the end that I totally disagree with.
Oh.
Okay, I need to find it. You need to chat amongst yourselves.
Well,
Maybe play.
I'll play the. This is how to contact.
Oh no, I found it. Who's it from? It is from Rob Hemsley in North Wales. And Rob says, scrolling back up, "What up, Jay Kurz, Eric E, Little Joe, and Nate Dogg? Just thought I'd throw a movie recommendation at you guys, which you may all have seen, but maybe some listeners haven't. The film in question is Extraterrestrial Visitors, aka Pod People, made in 1983 by the inimitable J.P. Simon of Pieces fame. The plot involves a cheesy pop singer and his backing singers taking a break away from recording the most infuriatingly catchy pop number ever to catch some R&R in a remote cabin in the woods. Unfortunately, there's a couple of aliens knocking about, one of whom is a goodie who befriends a young boy, E.T. styley. The other is The other is an alien baddie who thinks nothing of unprovoked attacks on the populace. The song band soon run themselves afoul of the more killy of the aliens, and panic and upset ensues. The film is hilarious in all the ways Pieces is. The silly dubbed dialogue is spoken in that quick-fire manner that we love from these Euro gems. There are tantrums and bitchiness galore, including a real Inga-style rant in the recording studio from the lead singer, the final boy from Pieces, to his hapless backing singers after what sounded like a perfectly good take to me. All in all, this film is a hoot in all the ways Pieces was, and although it only dips its toes into the slasher pool, it's a worthy watch for any trash fanatics. I saw it for the first time the other night. Where has this film been all my life? This would make a great pick for a Patreon episode. So would love to hear your take on its delights. Anywho, keep up the great work, chaps. I love you." That's from Ron Hemsley in North Wales. And this is the bit I object to at the end. He goes, #Team Susie.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Ron. That's is it Ron or Rob?
Hashtag.
Is it Ron or Rob?
Rob.
It's Rob, isn't it?
Yeah,
Rob. R-O-B. And he also has another hashtag. Y'all's turn.
Oh, I agree with that hashtag.
You called him Ron, though, Eric.
I call him
Well,
Rob.
that's what he gets for the Team Susie hashtag.
I wish Nathan had read that out.
He's right about Pod People, though. That movie's amazing.
Pod People is amazing.
Not seen it, but I'm surprised you like it, Nathan, if it's a sci-fi movie.
No, it takes place on Earth. The whole thing is Earth-related. Yeah, there's an alien, but he's killing off a bunch of band members one by one. So, I mean, what's there not to love? Yes. I mean, it even has the song Idiot Control now, and I love that song.
It's on YouTube because I think that's where I watched it. When we were doing our Pieces commentary, I was watching some of the director's other oeuvre, and that's stumbled across Pod People. I think there's a Mystery Science Theater spoof on it as well, if I'm not mistaken.
That's how I saw it.
Yeah.
That's how I know the song Idiot Control now.
Excellent. Well, no, I definitely shall...
I feel free to write back and put #Team Toya on it this time, please.
Well, yeah, he's not going to do that, are you, Rob? So
do it, Rob. And I'll pleasure you.
I love how we're all whispering now.
I know. Are you going to whore yourself out, Eric?
Sorry?
You going to whore yourself out?
Yeah, if it'll turn people to Team Susie, I will. Or Team Toya.
Yeah.
Oh, no!
Right, Freudian slip there.
Eric, Justin's going to use that as a soundbite now.
I know he is, because he's a whore.
Where's that? 1:16:10. Let me just jot that down. So,
I hate you!
So, okay, right. Well,
168 episodes and this is still going on.
I know, forever.
It'll be going on when we hit episode 1,000.
Indeed, it will. Okay, well, here is how to get in contact with the show.
The content of this podcast was provided by Justin, Joseph, Eric, and Nathan. If you enjoy our show and are willing to provide a donation, please consider becoming a Patreon subscriber at patreon.com/The Hysteria Continues. Your monetary kindness keeps the show on the air, and in return, you'll have access to exclusive content not released elsewhere. Also, like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter to stay up to date on all of our future shows and Blu-ray commentary releases. For general feedback, our email address is thehysteriacontinues@gmail.com.
Okay, and thank you for everyone who has written in and everyone who has become a Patreon supporter. We had a little flourish of new members, as it were, and Eric likes it when he has a few new members. What?
The podcast is sophisticated and highbrow, and then you've got to drag it down all the time.
Thank you. That's what people pay us for. So, yes, we've got a few new members.
You do a lot of in your windows, though, Justin.
I do not. That's besmirching my good character. But Erik, do you think? I mean, you could handle a few more, couldn't you?
I could handle a few more members.
Yes.
Speaking of handling things, do you have a joke of the week, Erik?
I do have a joke of the week.
Okay, let me just get it up. That's soundboard,
Yeah.
that is.
It's my joke of the week. It's so freaking fantastic.
Did you know that the top-billed actor in this movie is an accomplished cinematographer? He's very adept at turning that camera on. Welcome. Justin, are you okay? You're not laughing too much that you're hurting, are you?
I think I'm having an aneurysm.
Gosh, my jokes are so funny. Have effect. Wow.
Well, it's very good. One thing I forgot to mention with the demon that did make me laugh out loud was the way that the killer lowered himself very gently into the bath in that dramatic moment.
Well, he didn't want to hurt himself.
Yeah.
I mean, he'd already been stabbed. That's bad enough.
He kind of gingerly slid into the bath as if he was getting in there with half a pint of Radox. But so,
well,
yes.
he was kind of, because wasn't it Radox she used to make the floor all slippy?
That's true. Yes, it was a bit of a Home Alone kind of ending, wasn't it?
Radox. I thought it was like dishwashing liquid.
Well, it did look like washing up liquid, but it's in the bathroom, so I'm assuming it must be bubble bath of some kind.
Shampoo, yeah. But well, thank you, Erik. We'll move on. You still got a joke to come anyway for the Patreon pick. We're recording after this
too. Isn't it also Eric's pick next time as well? This is all Erik all the time now.
Yeah. Well, we'll come on to that before. But before we do, do we want to do an after the credits? Ooh. Okay.
Don't press stop. Shut up. Have the credit show.
Well, after the credits, all right, the demon, unfortunately, he passed away. It's very, very tragic. And Jennifer Holmes' character made a successful career out of marketing wonderful shower curtain and shower cap outerwear. New fashion.
Yeah. It's what they're all wearing on the catwalks in Milan.
Exactly.
Yes, and, that's where she ended up, working in Milan. All right, what do you think, Justin?
Well, I was thinking that it would be what I would love to have seen would have been a slasher set of boobs disco.
I would like to see that.
So kind of along the lines of Super Psycho Sweet 16, the roller, like the birthday party at the disco, and someone killing off disco bunnies at boobs disco. I think that would have been pretty fantastic. And it may or may not be the demon come back to life.
Oh, does he use a claw?
Yes, but it's got like a glitter on the end.
Okay, it's a little more, flashy.
Yeah,
it's a flashy demon,
and he has a disco ball for a mask. His head is actually a disco ball. Yeah. So that's
what about you, Erik?
Okay, well, I'm going to expand on Justin's one there. Yes, I do want it set in boobs disco, but my killer is going to be the final girl from the first, the demon, and she's gone insane because people have videoed her running around the streets screaming in her shower curtain and shower cap ensemble, and they've put it onto YouTube and Facebook and that, and she's been driven insane by the ridicule. So she becomes the killer, and she kills people dressed in that ensemble. She has her shower cap and her shower curtain, and she kills them with implements found in the bathroom, like a loo brush and stuff like that.
So this happened like in current time, so it happened years after part one.
I'm taking creative license, and their flashbacks to part one will actually be set in current day when we have social.
Oh, okay.
Be kind of like the way Evil Dead 2 recaps on Evil Dead 1, but does it in a modern way.
There you go, Joseph.
Okay, I don't believe in like reincarnation or anything, but Cameron Mitchell, when he was killed, He was reincarnated as Jamie's father in the excellent 1987 David Pryor film Deadly Prey, which I love. So there you go.
Fantastic, all worthy sequels. Although I do have one other idea. I just thought, how about if you had the final girl? She gets through this, but she opens a nail salon, and then one day she's filing someone's nails, and she files them a little bit too sharp, and she gets flashbacks to the killer's nail glove, and people are being killed, and they keep on finding false nails embedded in people's flesh. So it's a little bit like Killer Workout, but with manicures.
Yeah,
I would watch anything that's compared to Killer Workout.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm a cast member from Killer Workout.
The sound wasn't that bad.
It was that bad.
It sure wasn't.
It's like the cast was it was just populated by all Kennys from South Park. Oh, somebody just come.
Did you hear that?
Yeah, that was me. That was somebody coming online.
Was it?
I want to give a shout out before we go. I need to give a shout out to somebody, and that is Nathaniel Thompson, who's the head honcho at mondodigital.com. They continuously give us glowing reviews for our commentaries, including our most recent one, Blood Theatre by Vinegar's Syndrome, which he reviewed last week, I think. So I popped him an email just to say thanks, and he got back to me, and he said he's a big fan of the show. And Nathan even gets name checked in the latest review.
Yeah, thank you, Nathaniel. You know what they say, great Nathans think alike.
Yeah. Are you a Nathaniel?
No.
You're just Nathan.
My mom wanted to name me Nathaniel, but my dad didn't like that, so they compromised on just Nathan. I think it's very boring. I would have been fine with Nathaniel, but they wanted to name me a very boring name. I'm sorry to any Nathans out there.
Andreas calls you Nate.
Yeah, a lot of people call me Nate at work, too.
All right, okay. I thought it was just a man's pet name. No.
No, several people call me Nate. I let people call me whatever they want. Just don't call me late for dinner. Hardy har har.
Right, okay. Well, we've got a Patreon pick to record after this, so we better skedaddle. But before we do, Erik, it's your choice next. So what are you going to delight us with on the next Hysteria Continues?
Let me ask you this, Justin. Do you like metal? Do you like hair metal? Do you like Swedish hair metal? Blood Tracks. Ooh, that's our next pick, Blood Tracks.
Fantastic. Yes.
Yay.
So, yeah, that's going to be a fun one to do. So models versus mutants.
Versus hair metal bands.
Exactly. It's got it all. Got it all. Apart from a script and a budget. But it's got everything else. So it's going to be fun time. So, well, thank you for listening to The Hysteria Continues. And I think we'll have to play out with Lip Sync and Funky Town, I think.
Oh, awesome.
So, yeah, well, thank you for listening and say goodbye to the good people.
Banji.
No more Vanjie jokes.
No, lots more. And take me to Funky Town.
Yeah.